Hello, I'm Bayless Conley, and I wanted to welcome you to a series we're doing called Great Pursuits. We're actually looking in the Bible at specific things that God tells us we should pursue. Listen, I'm just telling you, if you will invest the next few minutes and study the Word of God, listen to the Word of God with me, it will bless you. It will enhance your life because God's Word is powerful, it's full of life, and it will lift you up.
Welkom bij Antwoorden met Bayless Conley. Het leven kan soms een uitdaging zijn. Maar of het nu gaat om financiën, relaties, gezondheid of de vraag naar je doel in je leven, één ding is zeker. God ziet je. Hij houdt van je. En wat er ook aan de hand is, Hij heeft de antwoorden op je vragen.
Did you know that in the Bible, there are specific things that God sometimes commands us to pursue? A couple of reasons why. Number one, we won't experience them if we don't pursue them. Even if it's within the scope of God's will for us to walk in a particular thing, we won't walk in it if we don't pursue it. We have to go after them. And the second reason God tells us to pursue these things is because they are important. I want to talk to you about one in this particular session, and you might be a bit surprised by it, but in God's economy, this is extremely important, and that is the pursuit of hospitality. Let me read to you from Romans 12, verses 9 through 13. It says, "Let love be without hypocrisy. Abhor what is evil, cling to what is good. Be kindly affectionate to one another with brotherly love, in honor giving preference to one another, not lagging in diligence, fervent in spirit, serving the Lord, rejoicing in hope, patient in tribulation, continuing steadfastly in prayer, distributing to the needs of the saints, given to hospitality." Now, there's a list of commands there, but we're just going to center in on one of them, and I want to emphasize the word command. It said we need to be given to hospitality. That word translated given there is the identical Greek word that we looked at in our, a couple of lessons ago, where the scripture told us in 1 Peter that we are to seek peace and pursue it. Here it's translated given to hospitality. Literally, pursue hospitality. Make it a part of your life. Open your heart and open your home to others. And the word hospitality here literally means to be fond of guests, to be friendly to strangers. Hospitality is one of the greatest ways we have to demonstrate our faith. And I still remember when I was married, my wife and I, we had a little tiny wedding. We really didn't have any money for it. We made all the little sandwiches for the reception for ourselves. And we started life pretty broke. And we had a little honeymoon that somebody else paid for us. And then I actually preached at the tail end of our honeymoon. I preached in a mid-sized church. And I preached my heart out. And we've been married like a week and got done and was talking to some people afterwards. And then I looked around and the pastor was gone. He just left, never said anything. There was no mention made of an honorarium or an offering for us. And the truth was, we might have had, between my wife and I, we might have had $3 or $4 between us. Maybe. We really didn't even have enough money to get lunch. We were there flat broke, and the pastor has just left. And I still remember how awkward we felt. We're like, the new kid on the playground, like, what do we do? And my wife and I, Janet, we're sort of looking at each other nervously like, okay, what's next? Where do we go from here? And an older couple walked up to us and they said, "Would you guys like to come to our house for lunch today?" We said, yes, we would. We were both very hungry. And I remember going to this older couple's house and laughing with them. And I still remember we had pot roast with vegetables. And they loved us like we were their own kids. And they fed us like kings. And to this day, I don't remember the sermon I preached in that church. I don't remember much else about it. but I have never forgotten the love and hospitality that was shown to us by that older couple. They showed us the love of Christ. You know, some years later, we started our own church, and I began to get invitations to speak in different places internationally, and our children were small, and I had a number of invitations to speak in different places throughout the United Kingdom. And so we took the family with us on this trip, and I preached in one of the most famous churches in the UK. It was an old Pentecostal church that had quite a history of the gospel and of impacting that region. And, you know, we had a good meeting. But what I remember about it is there was a husband and wife that put me and my family up in their home overnight. We stayed with them. And I remember drinking enough tea to float a battleship. I mean, they made pot after pot of tea. I remember having lunch. I remember laughing. I remember being in the backyard under that gorgeous English sky. They lived in the country, and playing croquet in the backyard with the children. I don't remember what message I preached in that church. I'm so sad to say, I don't even remember the pastor's name. But oh, I remember the love that was shown to us in that house. I remember the hospitality, and I guarantee you, even though our children were small, you know, like 4 and 5 years old at the time, if you talk to them today, they won't remember the church, they won't remember anything about it, but they remember that nice family, and they remember playing croquet in the backyard and just being loved. In fact, I talked to my daughter about it some time ago, and she said, "Oh yeah, Dad, you remember thus and so, and you remember we ate this," and she remembered everything about it. And she's in her 30s now, but she remembers that hospitality. They showed us the love of Jesus through their hospitable behavior. Now let's talk about the why of hospitality. Well, number one is because it is a command. It is not just a suggestion. God commands us to pursue hospitality. That's not optional if you're a follower of Jesus. Secondly, hospitality will open the door for some rich friendships and relationships to develop. In fact, I want to tell you some of the most amazing people in your life, some of those that are going to contribute in the largest ways in your life, you have yet to meet them. But you will if you practice hospitality. Sitting down over a meal and sharing what you have with someone just opens the door for friendships. I've got friends to this day. I would be doing a meeting somewhere, maybe in a different state here in the U.S., or it might be somewhere internationally. And, you know, I don't have necessarily a close relationship with, you know, the pastors that were there. And this is true, but there are people in the church that displayed hospitality. They wanted to take me to lunch, or they were willing to drive me somewhere. And those have been some of my closest friends to this day. And the link was hospitality, not just someone, and I'm very grateful to be, you know, I believe God's put a gift in my life that can help people. And that's why a particular pastor maybe invited me in, because he felt that what God had gifted me with could help his people. And I'm all for that. I'm all in. But as far as the relationships, the rich relationships, the fruitful relationships, the lasting relationships, almost all of them have come from the place of hospitality. Sharing with people that have different perspectives, that have different life experiences. Fascinating, helpful, great things can take place when you show hospitality to people. And secondly, we need to show hospitality to people because it is a tangible way to demonstrate the love of God and the reality of your salvation to people that need more than words. I remember a friend of mine contacted me one day, actually contacted Janet and I one day. Her brother was coming into town. He was not a believer. She said, you know, Bayless, my brother, he's not a believer. We're praying for his salvation, but he loves the outdoors, and we know you love the outdoors. Would you mind spending a day with him? And so I said, yeah. And I took him to one of my favorite spots to hike and to, you know, experience the outdoors. And we spent the day together. I mean, I took the day off from work, And I took this guy out in the wilderness with me. And we had such a rich time. I was just sharing my life, sharing the things that I love with him. You know, I provided food for the day. And we just had a good time. And I really hit it off with the guy. He was not a Christian. But we talked about God, and it turns out we loved a lot of the same things. And you know what? That day, when he drove back, he was staying with his sister. He began to talk to her about God and about the experience he had. And he says, I can't believe that guy Bayless. He was like so normal, and he was so kind. And you know, it was just fun being with him. I just didn't expect that. I didn't see that coming. And the conversation led from one thing to another. His sister calls the next day, and she said, my brother just gave his life to Jesus. Said, Bayless, the thing that opened the door of his heart was you just being so hospitable, taking a day off of work and sharing what you had with him. And he came to Christ. He just needed something tangible, something more than words. And you know, it certainly was the message of the gospel that brought salvation to him. But what caused him to open the door of his heart was the kindness of hospitality. Many, many years ago, when Janet and I were first married, we met an Indian evangelist. He was a young man. He was a good preacher. But we didn't know him well. But we just met him and spoke with him. And it was maybe, I think, a couple of years after that, Janet and I had moved into our first home. It was a small home with a little backyard. There wasn't many square feet to it, but we loved it. It was our first house. You know, pretty humble. And I got a phone call, and it was that Indian evangelist. I don't even know how he got my phone number, I suppose through a mutual friend. But he said, hey, my dad is coming over from India for the very first time. He's never been here to the States before, and he needs a place to stay. Would you guys consider letting him stay at your house for a couple of days? I said, sure, let him come. And so Janet and I talked about it and said, yeah, bring him on. So this man comes, and the father of the evangelist, he was a believer. He was involved in ministry as well. And I didn't realize it, but he was living in a very, very poor area of India. And he came and stayed with us in our, what I thought was a humble little house. And he felt like he was in a palace. He thought it was utter opulence, and it was compared to what he was used to in the area that he lived. And I still remember his astonishment at the dishwasher. You know, we finished a meal, and he went to wash the dishes. I said, you know what, we can just put these in the dishwasher. He said, what? I said, no, you put them in here like this. And I put the dishes in. He says, and that washes the dishes? I said, yeah. He was in utter astonishment. He'd never even heard of a dishwasher, much less seen one. And we just had rich, rich fellowship, you know, over the time that he spent with us. We prayed together. We laughed together. We talked about one another's cultures. And Janet and I learned a great lesson, that we were far wealthier than we thought we were. We had far more than we thought we had. And we gained a much greater appreciation for the blessings that we had in our life, for our home, for the appliances, for the things that we just sort of took for granted. And it really opened our eyes as to how many people here in the U.S., even that think they're not well off, compared to millions of other people around the planet, you know, we're very well off, and they would consider us wealthy. And then he learned some lessons, too, that people from a completely different culture valued and loved the same things that he valued and loved. We wanted to see the kingdom of God expand. We valued souls. We believed in laying our life on the line, you know, for the gospel, although that was expressed in a different way in the different context, you know, the context that we were living in. And so he was enriched as a result of having spent time with us, and he just loved it and loved us. And we were enriched from having spent time with him. And the thing that opened the door for our growth and for his growth was hospitality. Again, hospitality is not a suggestion. It is a commandment. In the Old Testament, God told his people, he said, be kind to strangers. Remember, you were strangers in the land of Egypt. We need to open our hearts, open our homes. It is time well spent. Yes, we need to be wise in what we do and who we let into our homes, but we need to be practicers of hospitality. You know, I know there are some people, when it comes to hospitality, they're thinking, well, you know, I don't have much. I just have this little apartment. And hey, hospitality has far more to do with what's in your heart than the things that you possess. It's about us sharing out of what we have, out of what God's given us with others. And you don't have to have a lot to be hospitable. But I tell you some things about hospitality is more than likely, if you have the opportunity to show hospitality to someone, you may need to be persuasive, because some people, due to maybe pride or not wanting to be a burden or to put an imposition on someone else by, you know, eating their food or staying with them or whatever, they'll say no, but secretly they're just hoping you will insist. Let me read something to you from Acts chapter 16, verse 15. This is about Lydia. It's written, it says, after she was baptized, along with everyone in her household, she said in a surge of hospitality, if you're confident that I'm with you and believe in the Master truly, come home with me and be my guest. We hesitated, but she wouldn't take no for an answer. And then I think as well, just another important word when it comes to hospitality is sensitivity. Because as I said, some people that they're awkward, that they feel like they're imposing and they don't want to be an imposition. And it takes a real gift and a real sensitivity to make someone feel at ease. Listen to this, 2 Corinthians chapter 7 and verse 15. It speaks about to them about their treatment of Titus. Paul writes, he says, he can't quit talking about it, going over and over again the story of your prompt obedience and the dignity and sensitivity of your hospitality were quite overwhelmed. He was quite overwhelmed by it all. And just making someone feel at home is a real gift and very, very important. And if you've not been practicing hospitality, you need to start doing that. If you haven't, listen, there are great blessings involved in it. Listen to these words from Jesus. This is Matthew chapter 25 and beginning in verse 34. And this is another reason we should practice it is frankly because what we do for the least, we're doing for Jesus. We're doing unto Jesus. Would you invite Jesus into your little apartment? Would you invite Jesus over to your home for a meal? Well, when you invite someone else, you are actually doing it for him. This is what he said. Matthew 25, verse 34. Then the king will say to those on his right hand, come, you blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you took me in. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me. Then the righteous will answer him, saying, Lord, when do we see you hungry and feed you? When do we see you thirsty and give you a drink? Or when do we see you a stranger and take you in? I'd never forget that face. Jesus, when? Or naked and we clothed you? When did we see you sick or in prison and come to you? And the king will answer and say to them, assuredly I say to you, inasmuch as you did it to one of the least of these my brethren, you did it to me. I mean, Jesus takes these things personally. You know, there's great benefit to us on a personal level. We meet people that enrich our lives. We have sweet, wonderful fellowship. We learn things. Sometimes lifelong friendships are formed. But as well, we are ministering to the Lord, and we are being a blessing to the Lord when we show hospitality. The Bible says this, Hebrews 13:2, do not forget to entertain strangers. Show hospitality. For by doing so, some have unwittingly entertained angels. This might seem weird to you, but I actually think about that a lot. I think about it with people I meet, about opportunities I have to be generous to someone, whether it's somebody on the street or somebody that's feeling socially awkward and just going over and making them feel like they are not awkward. I just have got it in the back of my mind. I wonder if this is an angel. Maybe this is a test. You know, God, I want to love like Jesus loves. I want to show hospitality and love strangers the way that you have loved me. I want to make people feel welcome and accepted. As you do that, and as I do that, the Lord takes our kindness personally. And truly, sometimes some of us may have entertained angels unaware. So let's just sort of recap. We need to practice hospitality, pursue hospitality. That means we need to go after it. It may not come naturally to you, but if you're a believer, you need to be hospitable because God commands us to do it, because people are valuable, because it's a tangible way for us to express the love of Christ. It says this in 3 John 5. This is from the Message Bible. It says, dear friend, when you extend hospitality to Christian brothers and sisters, even when they are strangers, you make the faith visible. Think about that. We make the faith visible. I can think of so many times in my life, especially as a young Christian, you know, I was feeling on the outside looking in. I didn't really feel a part of the community, but there were a few people that showed me hospitality. And I joke about it sometimes. When I got saved, I started going to this little Pentecostal church, and you know, I tell people I was the only one younger than 103. Well, that's not true, but to me it seemed like everybody in the church was old. And I had long, long hair. I had a long red beard. I'd kind of come out of the whole hippie deal, and I'd come out of a drug, abuse background. And a lot of people in the church were afraid of me because I looked so different. People would avoid me. And some people, if they talked to me, this is true, the only thing they'd say to me, this is in lieu of saying, hi, my name is, and offering to shake my hand. They say, doesn't the Bible say that it's a shame for a man to have long hair? And they turn around and walk away. That was the only greeting I got. But I kept going because I was hungry for Jesus, and they would sing songs about Jesus, and they'd preach about Jesus, and I would cry, and I would cry, and I'd get up on the altar on my knees, and I would pray. And I just loved the Lord, but many of the people there didn't understand me, but there were a few of them that showed me hospitality. Not a lot, but there was a few. And they kept me going, and they made the love of God, they made the gospel visible to me. They were kind. They were like God's hands extended into my life. And I can honestly say that I would not be here today, I don't believe, talking into this camera, sharing with you as you're sitting at your kitchen table or in your living room or in your hotel room or wherever you happen to be. I wouldn't be doing that if not for those hospitable hands that had opened their hearts, opened their homes to me, and shared what they had with me. And listen, I've eaten roasted goat in mountainous regions of Mexico among, native Indian tribes that had very little. In fact, the goat was an extravagant gift, and they made me feel welcome, made me feel like an honored guest. I've also eaten rich finger foods, in something that would be deemed a palace among, trappings of excessive wealth, and I was made to feel like I was unwanted. I was made to feel like excess baggage. In a heartbeat, I would rather go back to that little Indian village, that didn't have a single paved road in it, to those kind people, because they left an imprint on my heart, than go back to the rich place where I was made to feel like a stranger and an outsider and like I was intruding on their privacy. My friend, pursue hospitality. You'll be a blessing to the Lord, to his family, and who knows, it might be the door that opens someone's heart to salvation in Christ. You know, hospitality can really seem like such a natural thing. But you know what? It's when we do natural things in obedience to God that they become infused with the supernatural. God can use a natural thing in a supernatural way if we'll do it with a right heart and if we will do it with an obedient heart. Frankly, I am loving this series, and the next thing that God tells us to pursue, well, you're just going to have to join us. It has been so good, and it's going to be richer and richer and richer. You're just going to love it. You're not going to want to miss it. So, hey, I pray that God blesses you, that his peace and presence pervade the atmosphere in your home. And if you support us, I want to say thank you. We could not do what we do without your financial support, without your prayers. And if you've not become a partner with us, pray about it. We're taking a living Jesus to a dying world, and we're glad to do it. Let's work together while it's day.
Heb je vragen over de uitzending? Of houd je iets bezig waarvoor we kunnen bidden? Schrijf ons dan of bel ons op. Ons team is er voor je. Wil je meer weten en op de hoogte blijven van Antwoorden met Bayless Conley? Meld je dan aan voor de gratis maandbrief van Bayless per e-mail of per post. God zegen.